With the release of the PS5, we also got arguably the biggest change to Sony's classic controller design in history. An abundance of new features made this thing feel so futuristic and let you actually feel everything the PlayStation 5 had to offer. But does it still hold up in 2025, over 4 years later? When the PS4 launched back in 2013, the DualShock 4 was such a big improvement over the classic PlayStation controller design that Sony had been using for years at that point, and gamers loved it. For the first time, the grips were actually fit to comfortably slide into human hands. The triggers were designed to keep your fingers from sliding off of them. A speaker was added to the controller to give depth to game audio and provide feedback directly in gamers' hands. And the touchpad was somewhat niche, but felt like a modern addition with plenty of potential for utilization in games. Overall, this controller was a massive improvement and did finally feel like a modern gaming controller. The only real drawbacks were that it still visually tried to capture the same essence and design of the original PlayStation controller, which somewhat hindered how comfortable it could really be. And it's a pretty small controller, which many gamers find somewhat fragile and prone to stick drift, broken charging ports, and battery life issues. The controller was a big leap, but Sony could do so much more. And 7 years later, with the launch of the PS5 in 2020, we were blessed with what I would consider the best controller ever made, the DualSense. In all my years of gaming, I have never felt so immersed in a game as I did when I played through Astro's Playroom and was just blown away by all the new features. But what exactly does this controller have to offer that makes it so special? Well, to begin with, this thing is so comfortable in the hands, having by far the most ergonomic design of any PlayStation controller ever, and it's not even close. This thing is much larger than the DualShock 4, which is definitely a win in my book, and the grips feel so much better, smoother, and cohesive throughout the entire controller, which honestly makes the DualSense what I would consider maximum comfort. I really don't know if it's possible to top this thing. But where things really get interesting is all the new features that pull you into the game and really feel like they break the barrier between the gamer and what's on their screen. Starting with the HD Rumble. This has been around for quite a bit, but never at this level. The Rumble is some of the best out there, and any game that supports it is instantly cranked up in the immersion category by a ton. The Rumble in this thing gives so much feedback that doesn't just feel like your controller vibrating, it really feels like you're in the game. HD Rumble isn't all that's offered here though, as we also got the brand new adaptive triggers. I get for competitive online gamers who just want to be the best they possibly can, these might not be for them. But for the casual gamer who just wants an immersive and incredible time with the games they've spent their hard-earned money on, these triggers are seriously amazing, and unlike anything you'll find on any other gaming platform. It really feels like you're swinging Kratos' axe, or firing actual bullets, or charging up a giant laser beam. The triggers feel so incredibly realistic, and surprisingly offer functional uses in games. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart being a notable one, where most weapons have two different modes, one for a short press and one for a long press, and it's easy to tell which is which due to the high tension placed at the midpoint of the trigger's press. This feature adds new functionality and control options, while also just being a way of making the game feel that much more like it's not just a game on a TV screen. The adaptive triggers get an A+ from me. There's also the touchpad returning from the DualShock 4, which is neat to see, but at the end of the day, I find it difficult to track down any game that really utilizes this thing to its full potential. Astro's Playroom shows us everything it's capable of, but it seems like it's never been taken advantage of, even though it's a feature that's existed for over 11 years. It's not too big of a deal though, as you don't want games to feel too gimmicky, and the most this thing is used for is a quick swipe right or left to bring up alternate menus, which is really the most I feel we need out of it. Moving on, the PS5 controller was also given a gyroscope, allowing for motion controls. Obviously, this isn't the Wii, so it isn't exactly the main gimmick here, but it's a nice addition. This functionality potential is made clearly visible in Astrobot. It works very well, and games that support it and utilize it well are going to feel more immersive, which is what this controller and what this console is really all about. With the release of the DualSense, we also now have a built-in microphone in our controller. This is a surprisingly good feature, as it means if you're playing any game that supports game chat, you'll always have a microphone, and the days are gone of you being the one person who can't communicate because you're playing on your TV and you don't have a mic. There's also a mute button for privacy, which I would highly recommend, and the controller also has a speaker, allowing for what really feels like 3D audio when certain sounds are being blasted from the palm of your hands. Sure, some of these features may be gimmicky, and most of them are not taken full advantage of by all the games being released. When you're playing something that really does try, this controller makes a world of a difference. It is just so dang comfortable, having a form factor that I believe has fully maxed out the possible potential comfort level that any controller could even have. You could redesign and modify the shape as much as you want, and while you could create a controller that feels different in the hands, I don't really know if it's possible to make one that feels better in the hands. Combine that with the perfectly textured grips, triggers, and thumbsticks, and you have the recipe for an absolutely fantastic controller that'll blow the minds of anyone who hasn't tried it out yet. I really think Sony reached heights I didn't think were possible for this controller, and I don't know if they'll ever be able to top it. But I could be wrong, and only the future will show what's in store for us. So this controller is absolutely still amazing in 2025, and it's still a great reason to pick up the PlayStation 5, or if you just want to use the controller on PC as well, it will be awesome. But of course, that's all just my personal opinion. And let me know your thoughts on this controller in the comments down below. I'll see you all next time.